Welcome to my channel. So let's talk about one of the biggest mysteries in That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. How does a simple, everyday slime become a literal god who can create entire universes? It's a wild question, right? Well, today, we're going to dive deep into the theory that Rimuru Tempest is actually the reincarnation of the creator god himself, Veldanava.
I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but it all started right here, with this, a simple slime, literally the weakest monster you can find. So how in the world did we get from this to, well, this? A being who can create and destroy entire universes just by thinking about it. That's a jump, right? It doesn't add up. Unless, of course, there's a lot more going on than we first thought. So yeah, how does the slime become a god? Let's do this. Let's break down all the evidence piece by piece and see if we can crack this thing wide open.
All right, first things first. Let's start at the very beginning, because the first clue is just how strange Rimuru's arrival in this new world really was.
Okay, so Rimuru reincarnates inside Veldara's cave. Now, you gotta stop and think about that for a second. This place is basically soaked in so much magical energy, so many dense magicules, that only super high-level monsters should even be able to exist there. You don't see any other slimes hanging around. So why would the weakest monster in the game spawn in one of the most dangerous places on the map?
So, what if it wasn't a coincidence? What if the universe itself knew his true power level from the get-go? Veldara's cave wasn't just some random spawn point. It was the only place strong enough to handle the birth of someone with his kind of potential. Because maybe, just maybe, he was never just a slime. He was something so much more.
So the spawn point is fishy, but it gets deeper than that. When you look at Rimuru's actions, his personality, it's like we're seeing echoes of the creator god himself. The similarities are honestly pretty hard to ignore once you start looking.
Let's just look at why they build things. Veldanava created an entire world because he wanted variety. He wanted interesting stories to unfold. Now look at Rimuru. He builds the Nation of Tempest. He even builds a massive labyrinth. And it's all for the exact same reason, to create a place for adventure, for stories, for excitement. It is the exact same creative drive, just playing out on a different scale. And it's not just what they create, it's how they lead. Their philosophies are almost identical. Veldanava literally gave away his most powerful skills just to make sure his world could grow and thrive on its own. Rimuru does the same thing. He's constantly pushing his generals and his people to get stronger so that Tempest doesn't need him to survive. They both want their creations to be able to stand on their own 2 feet.
Okay, so their personalities are a match. That's compelling, for sure. But what about the hard evidence, the actual rules of this world? Well, this is where the theory gets really fascinating, and it all comes down to the soul.
So, real quick, in the world of Tenzura, a soul is pretty much made of 3 parts: your will, your memories, and the energy that powers it all. The best way to think about it is like a spiritual battery. And the size of that battery, that's what we call soul power.
Now here's the one rule that basically blows this whole thing wide open. Ultimate skills, the most powerful abilities in the entire universe, they use an absolutely insane amount of that soul power. So much so that it's nearly impossible for any one person to have more than one.
I mean, just look at these two, Guy Crimson, Leon Cromwell. We are talking about some of the oldest, most powerful beings in existence. And even with all that power, all that experience, they can each only handle 1 ultimate skill. That's the hard limit. That's the rule.
And then there's Rimuru, who at one point was juggling 4 ultimate skills at the same time: Beelzebub, Raphael, Veldora, and Uriel. How? How is that even possible? For a soul to have that much capacity, it would have to belong to something far beyond a normal reincarnated human. It's a massive flashing red flag. Okay, so his soul is impossibly strong, and he acts just like the creator. But what about the people who were actually there? The ones who knew Veldanava personally? What do they think when they run into Rimuru? So let's talk about Dino. This guy is one of the primordial angels that Veldanava himself created, and his entire personality is built around being lazy. His ultimate skill is literally named Sloth. The only person he would ever listen to or work for was his creator, Veldanava. And yet, this same Dino feels a familiar bond with Rimuru. It's a connection so strong that he actually, willingly, works for him. You have to have Veldanava-level influence to pull that off.
But honestly, the biggest piece of evidence, the real smoking gun, comes during the huge fight with the ultimate skill, Michael. Now remember, Michael wasn't just any skill. It was Veldanava's personal skill, and it had a piece of his will inside it. After this crazy, brutal battle, Rimuru manages to absorb it.
And this is the absolute clincher. When Rimuru absorbs Michael, the skill doesn't fight back. It feels like it's coming home. The skill itself describes Rimuru's soul as a familiar comfort. Veldanava's own power literally recognized Rimuru's soul as its original master.
So let's just recap, right? We've got the impossible spawn point, a creator's personality, a god-tier soul, and recognition from the people and the powers who knew him best. The evidence is just piling up. So how does it all fit together?
Well, the key might be a concept that already exists in this world: soul fragmentation. We've actually seen it happen before with the hero Rudra. After he kept getting reincarnated over and over, his powerful soul started to break apart, creating fragments like Masayuki who share his original essence.
So, what if that exact same thing happened to Veldanava? What if, when he died, his soul shattered, and the largest, most important piece was reborn on a world without any magic, as a totally ordinary human named Satoru Mikami?
And if you're still not convinced, there's one last, absolutely mind-bending detail to consider. Chloe's mask. A simple item Rimuru made that somehow became the anchor point for a time loop that literally rewrote history. That kind of power, to bend the fundamental laws of the universe itself, should really only belong to one being, the one who created those laws in the first place.
So, I gotta ask you, what do you think? If Rimuru really is Veldanava, was this whole thing part of some grand design? A god choosing to forget who he was just so he could experience his own creation from the very, very beginning? I'd love to hear your theories down in the comments. And for more explainers like this one, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Anime Architect.